Hey, my name is Ryan Stevens. I am here to talk to you about how the 2026 World Cup will be different than any other World Cup in history. What I'll be going over today is, first, what is the World Cup? Second, why is this World Cup in 2026 different than any other World Cup that'll be played? Third thing I'll be going over, how they get selected, how the teams get drawn, how they qualify for the World Cup, and fourth thing is how the World Cup is structured and how it's formatted. So what is the World Cup? The World Cup is the biggest soccer tournament in the world and in history. You have teams from all over the world competing for one trophy, and each country only gets one team. And so here is a picture of something to compare it to is the Super Bowl. A lot of people think Super Bowl is the biggest sporting event in the world. And these numbers here can show you how wrong that is and how the World Cup is much over 10 times to 15 times as big as the Super Bowl. Here are some numbers that can show you the viewership of each World Cup throughout the years. And in 2022, its World Cup final had a viewership of estimated around 1.5 billion. The Super Bowl had just under 100 million viewership. And so with those numbers, you can see the World Cup is on average 15 times as big. And so that kind of gives you a scale of how big and how grand this is of a tournament. Next thing, so what makes this 2026 World Cup different than any other World Cup played? So, first thing is you have, in every other World Cup, you have 32 teams that qualify. These 32 teams play, and a winner is chosen after the final. And this World Cup, you have 48 countries this World Cup. And so 50% increase than the previous World Cup, like from the World Cup's numbers of 32. And so just with that, there's a lot more games. In the previous World Cups, there were 64. In this World Cup in 2026, you will have 104 matches. Something like to compare that to is like how March Madness in the US, you have games constantly, almost every day, just game after game after game. And now just compare that to, instead of basketball, it's soccer. And instead of colleges, it's countries. And so as you can see, it's just a much more bigger scale of like this sporting event. And so how do teams get selected? Well, there's an X amount of numbers of teams that get selected from each continent. So Europe gets an X amount, Africa gets an X amount, South America, and etc. Before 2026, each countries within the continent play each other, and they kind of have like a ranking system based off their wins and ties, losses. And so you have these countries in each continent that qualify to be in the World Cup based off their previous matches between each country. And so they take the ones that qualify for the World Cup, and they rank them. There's tier 1. These are the top teams in each World Cup. The top team in each World Cup's bracket of you have You have South America's number 1, number 2. Those would be in like tier 1. Europe's like top 4 would be classified as tier 1. And then from there you have tier 2 teams that would take like 3rd or 4th place in each continent. And then from there you have tier 3 and so on, tier 4. And so in this, they had a World Cup draw. It was televised, had a lot of comedians, had a lot of athletes, had a lot of celebrities, just to kind of treat it more, just give it the higher class type of feel. And so there were some world-class athletes that they draw countries like with tags that has the name of a country on it. Right out of a jar. It's kind of old school, but it's ensured there's no fraud going on. There's no predetermined, they know where each team is going. It is like mixing your hand in a jar and pulling it out. And here's a clip of Tom Brady selecting the teams.
The Red Devils have twice reached the semi-finals. They were 3rd in 2018 and 4th at Mexico 86.
Yeah, Belgium go into Group G in position 1.
So from that clip, you can see Tom Brady, mixing his hand around, grabbing Belgium's name, reading it, and placing it into the selected bracket. So here we go. Here's how it is formatted. Right here is the current placing of the World Cup in 2026. So here's a list of all the teams and who's in each bracket. Like for US, you have US, Paraguay, Australia, and then a predetermined winner. And so you have these 12 groups. They'll all play each other, and the top 2 of each of these groups will move on to the knockout stage. And so from there, they will battle it out. Another thing worth noting is there are 8 spots for the 3rd place. So 8 of the 3rd places we'll get into the knockout stage based on how many points they have. So if there is an 8th place, a 3rd place with 5 points, they didn't make the 1st or 2nd spot, but they have a very high amount of the 3rd place spots, they will move on. So the top 8 of the 3rd places will move on to the knockout stage. Here is the template for the knockout stage. So it's empty, hasn't been played yet, but you have the groups, and then from there you have the round of 32, and then winner of those, round of 16, winner of those, quarterfinals, winner of those will go into the winner of the semifinals will be played in the finals. And that is where the winner is decided. It's just one game. And this is the most watched game of the whole tournament. Everything comes down to that final game. So I'd like to thank you for your time and then letting me explain how the World Cup works and just sharing more info about it. Here's a QR code to learn more, to just see tickets, to see scheduling of games, jerseys, etc. And it's going to be an awesome summer.